David Mastagni. I'm also a member of the Consumer Attorneys and the American Association of Lawyers for Justice. But we also have, here in Sacramento, the largest law enforcement representation firm in the country and in California. These issues are eminently present in a lot of the litigation that we're currently doing. What I would agree that on number one, there really isn't any data to say whether or not an issue exists of not turning body cameras on. It's still in the field testing stage. It's just we're not ready there. With regard to when defendants are given the discovery in criminal cases, there are penal code sections, there's discovery, and I'll defer to Mr. Hora to my right. He probably knows them by heart. I generally know it's like 1054 of the penal code, and that when a decision to prosecute's been made, that's available and that there are certain protections of witnesses. When it comes to civil litigants, you really have to break that into two categories. The pre-litigation civil litigants, which are going to be CPRA, and there's going to be a lot of litigation on the issue of the media. And corollary to the whole CPRA issue is attorney's fees and who is going to be chilled from seeking the release or non-release. For instance, victims and witnesses have really no power over the release or non-release. That's something that's up to the entities. And so some kind of standing has to be afforded to those people, and they need to be exempt from having attorney's fees assessed against them. If I'm an ordinary citizen and I'm a witness and I'm fearful that the release of my information is going to jeopardize me or somehow chill me from wanting to going forward, I want to be able to contest a public access to that video without the specter of attorney's fees being assessed against me. And I'm aware of cases so far at the trial level where non-public entities who have no power over the actual release or non-release who have contested have had attorney's fees assessed against them. So I think that you're going to, with regard to the civil cases, you've got the 2030 sections of the civil code, and those are going to determine when documents are released. And I can think of hundreds of situations where motions are going to be made, truck accidents where there's fatalities, auto accidents, various disasters of kinds where law enforcement is there. Most civil litigators are going to say, okay, I see what the responding officer reported in the police report, but we know that sometimes that's not 100% accurate. We know it's not going to have voice inflections. We know that there's video out, so you're going to have a significant amount of litigation over access in civil cases. I hardly believe that the insurance industry is going to pass on not being able to get the actual statements, nor frankly, if I were representing an officer, I would want to see the footage. I respectfully disagree with my colleagues who have taken the position that officers should not be afforded access to the videos because, after all, we want truth and accuracy. We don't want to trap people down the line in testimony based upon recollection or recall. I don't have to go into my own experiences or anyone else's. Your recall is just better, and that mechanism is addressed under the evidence code, where you can ask the witness, is this your actual recollection or is it refreshed from something? And that never fails to be asked in a deposition or other discovery forum. You're going to have litigation not only over fees and costs on the CPRA, you're going to have litigation with the media because they're going to want access to these records for reasons unrelated to to law enforcement. They're going to want them because it's a notorious person or myself, let's say, or a politician or somebody. They're going to want to see the footage. So that's going to be litigation. I've discussed the privacy litigation of citizens. It's going to be HIPAA. It's going to be the type of crime investigation. It's going to be safety. It's going to be access to the criminal justice system free of intimidation, that someone's going to see that it's you who talked to the police, and that type of issue. Then you're going to have search issues, like what the camera filmed on an entry into a structure. You're going to have search issues on what the camera filmed that was something you weren't there for. Those are going to be issues. You're going to have issues in domestic violence cases where the camera is going to be relevant. It's going to possibly be litigated in the bargaining context, the extent to which the impacts are bargainable, the extent to which implementation is bargainable. Those are potential litigation issues. You're going to have it on restraining orders outside of the context of domestic violence. But I think what most of all this is going to do, it's going to eliminate litigation in this specific context, where someone is charged with a crime, and we know from our experience that one of the ways to defend a case is to say there's officer misconduct of some type. Then that develops into a who said what, and it affects the prosecutorial decision of whether or not to prosecute, whether to plea bargain. And I think a net effect of this is that it will be a law enforcement tool which will result in decisions to prosecute. It'll affect decisions to prosecute. It'll affect decisions to take pleas. And it may, depending on and much of this is open to speculation because we don't know, but it may increase the number of prosecutions. The DA may say, hey, the witnesses are saying this, but the video camera shows that. Hey, the witnesses are saying this, and the video camera shows that, and it may result in either a plea, a decision not to prosecute, or a decision to prosecute. That's open and up in the air.
Perhaps if you could take like one more minute, although I love your testimony, but we have to get through here. So
okay, the exemption for investigation is going to be a subject matter of litigation. I hardly see the press corps accepting that as I'm leaving town. And there's going to have to be some development of standing, who has standing, not penalize the citizenry for objecting to their private interests being exposed. It certainly will come forward to some extent or another in administrative cases. And there's liable to be litigation over retention, how long, what's retained, when it's on, when it's off. There are a whole host of issues, and I hope that I have been helpful to this committee. I can only tell you that these issues arise all the time without videos, and so they're going to arise not just on the video footage, but on the audio footage as well. And those are issues to be taken into consideration in implementing and how to implement.
Your testimony has been extremely helpful. You've raised a lot of very important issues, some of which I hadn't thought about. So really appreciate your testimony.